Hi everyone, we would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we are creating and streaming from today and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. My name is Flynn, I am hosting today and I'm here with my good friend Ian Haigh. Hi Ian, how are you?
Hey Flynn, I'm really well. How are you?
Good, thanks. We had a great stream on Tuesday, which was lots of fun. So if you missed part one, you can jump over there, catch a replay on YouTube or Behance. So that was a lot of fun. And now we're jumping in for part two as well. So we're playing around with After Effects, geeking out a little bit. So, let us know if there's something that you don't understand. I certainly will be letting Ian know when there's things I don't understand. But we've got a live chat there on Behance. We'll also keep an eye on YouTube today as well. Let us know how you're going, maybe where you're tuning in from. That's always fun. But yeah, Ian, great to have you back.
Thank you so much for having me back. I just love geeking out with After Effects. It is just the perfect geeking out application for me. And it's on Tuesday, we geeked out a little bit with some expressions and basically making animation without any keyframes at all. And today we're going to be doing some more expression work, but we're going to look at inheritance with essential graphics and reusing the comp, which is super powerful and really good. And I hope everyone gets some joy out of that, because I know I do. And if we've got time, there's a couple of other pretty advanced, pretty geeky stuff that I'd love to touch on, not going too in depth, but it's just super exciting. It's actually changed the way that I work with After Effects. So that's a kind of a little bonus segment if we have a little bit of time.
If we make it through. All right. Well, that sounds awesome. It's like that big chunky bit is for everyone else, and then that little bit at the end is for you because you love to geek out and get super deep. I love it.
You know what? It is for everybody. It's for everyone, because I think it's just like once you start to see the possibility of what you can do in After Effects, and you don't have to go too deep, but once you sort of start to understand and things start to click into place, then it's like it opens up so much power under the hood.
Right. Oh, cool. All right then. Well, I think we have your screen here. Let's jump on in. As I said, say hi. Don't be shy today. We love to hear from you. Let's
jump
roll.
in with any questions at any time. So let's just get straight into it. I've made this little diagram here, which is a kind of like a preamble before we get into the making things part of it. So what we're going to talk about is inheritance, and this is that technique that I think is extremely powerful. We've got a base comp. This represents just nothing special about it at the moment. But what you can do is define properties that you want to override in instances of that base comp. So, for example, it could be the text in here. Once you've set that up, then every instance of that base comp, you can change the property that you overwrote, so in this case the source text, and it will be updated in all of the individual instances. And you could also use JavaScript to say, in this instance, we're dynamically resizing the text frame around each of these. So I'll show you how to do that, so that depending on what text you've got in your the individual instances of the comp, the text frame will automatically resize to fit. You could also wire it up to change the color, for example, as well. Like any property, you can set it up so that it'll override in the instant comps. And the beauty of all of this is that then when you change something in the base comp, so for my little demo here, it will change the font, it'll automatically be reflected in all of those comps that depend on the top one. So you can imagine, I just used this recently doing about 50 little name tags for people. And so every time there was a change, rather than having to update 50 individual comps in After Effects, I just updated it in one place, the base comp, and then those changes were reflected in every single individual instance. So massive time saver. So I'm going to show you how to set that up, and then I'll show you how to wire that up to JSON, which is an abbreviation for JavaScript Object Notation, which is actually not as bad as it sounds, and save even more time. So we can, if that all kind of makes sense, then let's jump in.
Yeah, it sounds cool. So it sounds a lot like setting your file and your systems up in a certain way that future proofs it a little bit, or maybe you set something up. There's lots of client changes, or it's one of those kind of like dynamic projects, or something that's a year-on-year project, or something that needs to be in multiple places.
Yeah,
And by setting your file and setting everything up in this way, you're going to save yourself a lot of headache down the road.
that's right. That's right. And it could also be another instance, which I think is really helpful, is if you were making something that then you need to give to someone else. Maybe they're not an After Effects guru, maybe you are. Then you could set it up like this, and then just expose a few properties that they're able to change and tweak, and then they get the power of that flexibility without having to dive into anything too complicated. So it's really handy and powerful technique.
Sweet.
So
all right,
let's jump into After Effects. Completely empty here. I'm just going to make a brand new comp, and we'll call it base comp. Just we need to. The naming is, as you can imagine, pretty important to keep that consistent. And I'll just make it like what we were looking at before. Put some text in here. I'm the base comp. All right, so that's just pretty standard in the middle of the stage there. And
novice question here, but how did you snap that into the middle very quickly?
Right, so keyboard shortcut. I love my keyboard shortcut. So that one is if you go to let's see, it's one of those things where I know the keyboard shortcut, but I don't know where to find it in the menus. Under layer transform, center anchor point and layer content, followed immediately by center in view.
Right.
So when I did that, it was, you could see the anchor point was actually at the bottom of that layer.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I hit Command Option Home, and then Command Home to get it immediately straight into the center.
That's useful.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm the base comp here, and what I'll do is I'll set up the text box around that as well, so we'll get our feet wet with a bit of JavaScript, a bit of expression. So I'm going to choose the rectangle tool, and I'll just draw a basic sort of rectangle that's roughly around the size of that. I'll use my little shortcut to center it again, and now I'll put it in the back. And it's looking not too bad. Get rid of that stroke. We don't want that stroke on it because that looks bad and weird. And now when I flip that open, I can see it's a rectangle path, and I've got the size in there. And what I want to do is wire up a little bit of JavaScript that will automatically resize this rectangle depending on the width of the text from that layer. So right now, I'm going to hold down my Option key, Alt on Windows, and click on the stopwatch for size under that shape layer. It's going to drop me into the expression editor. Let's give it a little bit more room. Now, what I want to do is refer to this text layer up here. So I will start, I'll leave that line in there right now so it doesn't complain at me. I'll start by making a variable that refers to the text layer. So I'm just going to call it ref, for reference equals, and now use this little pick whip guy, drag that to this layer. And it's typed it all in for me. So the ref variable is pointing to this layer called I'm the base comp. Nice thing about After Effects is that it keeps track of all of these little references. So if I named this layer something like headline over here on the left, then when I press return, it'll automatically update in the expression.
Oh, that's cool.
You don't need to keep track of it, it would be very bad if that did not happen. Okay, so now what I want to do is find out the width of this layer. And there's a built-in little method. If I go ref and press the dot, start typing source rect at time. So that basically means there's a rectangle that encompasses the bounds of that layer. I just want to know what the width is of that. So you could put the time in here. If the width of it was changing, for example, then you could put the time in between those brackets. So say 5 seconds, we could do that. We could just leave it out, doesn't need it for our instance. And then I'll put a dot because I want to, the source rect at time will actually return a whole bunch of different values. We just want one of those, and that is width.
Okay.
Now I need to put all of that, save that somewhere in a variable. So I'm just going to go to the start of that line. I'll call it my width equals. All right. So nothing has happened yet, but we've already sort of set up some of the basics, which are going to be really valuable. Got a reference to that layer, and then we're going to grab the width of that text, and that is a variable. So it will, if we change the text, it will change the value of my width. Now, when I need to poke it in here so that we actually update these numbers. I'm going to get rid of that line. That was one that automatically the After Effects put in for us. So because I need to give it two numbers, it expects two numbers, I have to enclose them in square brackets, which is the JavaScript array that lets you have a list of more than one value. So I will put in here my width. The first value is the width, and then the second value is the height. So I'm just going to type in 200. Or alternatively, if you want to use that value there, you could actually just type, you know what, I'll use the pick whip. So pick whip, the shortest pick whip distance I've ever seen from here to that number. There we go.
So you can really pick whip anything.
You really can. Yeah, it's pretty great. It's a nifty little tool. I'm like, that is correct, but it's way too sort of verbose for me. So what I'm going to do is, there's a special keyword called value, and I just want to take the in a JavaScript array, it begins counting at 0. So I'm going to take 1, which is the second value in the list.
Okay.
I hope that makes sense. So when I press enter now, so that one is my width, so it got that value there. And as you can see, the rectangle now is exactly, it's just really, look at that, how incredibly accurate that is. It has really gone above and beyond when it's measured that rectangle and that type. It is precisely the width of that text, which is amazing. It's basically 940.7 pixels. This value here is still editable because I used value 1. So I could just drag that to change the height of it if I wanted to. If I drag the one on the left, nothing will happen because, nothing will happen because it's getting its value from my width over here.
Right.
So we're off to a great start. As you can see, it's a little bit too tight on the edges, so we can just add a number to it. We can just add over here my width. Yeah, some padding, say 200 pixels. And now that's a bit much. All right, let's go 100 pixels. Okay, that's not too bad.
It's good.
Yeah.
I like it.
And now the cool thing about that is, I edit this text. Hi, Mum. The rectangle automatically updates its width, depending on what the text is in there. So we're already off to a good start. We've got the headline in there. We've got the automatically resizing rectangle. Now, let's make this into the base comp. As you'll recall, this is the one that we're working on over here. And we are going to define at least one property to override when we make a new instance of that base comp. Probably easier to see than to talk about because there's a lot of pretty geeky.
It's good. It's good. It's like a setup, and then it's like, okay, here's what I was talking about.
And here's what I was talking about. So I'm going to now call up the Essential Graphics panel by right-clicking somewhere in my timeline, not on a layer, but just somewhere in the timeline, and choose Open in Essential Graphics. It pops up this nifty little panel over here, which you may or may not have seen, but it lets you, it's essential for what we're doing today, and that is lets you talk about the properties that you want to override in this comp. And it's pretty sophisticated. This is when you use one of these to do the mogurts that you might have used in Adobe Premiere, for example. So I'll give this a name. We'll call it cool heading. It's really just for our reference. It doesn't matter what it's called. And now I will right click on the source text of the headline layer, and I'll add that property to Essential Graphics. And it's just plunked it straight in there. It's given it the property name is the headline. So that's actually pretty suitable for our needs. It needs to be something that kind of makes sense to you. And that's the default text. So that's really, we've got it working now, and which I will demonstrate just After Effects comp so it doesn't explode on me. Now, if I make a brand new comp, let's call it demo of base comp, and this is completely empty. If I drag my base comp into demo comp, that's more or less what you'd expect. It's that's now an instance of base comp. It's like a nested composition in our demo one. But the difference is if I flip open, there's this one, Essential Properties, and here's Headline. So that's the one that we set up.
So it's added. So that's what we've set up. It's added that extra thing that you can edit.
Exactly. So that's really the key here. That's the special sauce that's going to make this so powerful. I need to feed that an expression now. So if I option click on that, it's gone into expression mode. I could type in here anything like anyone for tacos and press. And it's updated, even though if I go back into that base comp, that's the original. It's overridden the source text from that comp, and it's automatically resized the rectangle as well.
Tacos.
So I could make more than one instance of this. Let's see, I'll scale it down to 50%. Now we've got base comp, we'll call that layer 101. Make another one over here, 2, 3, 4, and then move those down so that we now have 4 instances of our extra base comp. Why is that not working?
I think it's on the 2.
I've done something weird. Oh, there we go.
Yes.
Okay, so now if I go in here and I'm going to hit the U key twice. I can see all of the, if you hit the U key twice, it'll show only the properties that have changed from the original. If I hit the E key twice, it'll only show me the expressions. So right now these all say tacos. So I could say,
of course, so you've selected all of them, and if you press E twice, it'll show you the expressions for everything that you've selected?
Correct.
Cool.
So it's a really handy way to just zone in on exactly what you're interested in. So now by going in here, I could say burritos, tacos, nachos. I didn't set out to have a Mexican theme this morning to send it up that way.
You're making everyone hungry.
Sombreros. And so automatically it's resized even though they're all based on the same comp, they're all unique. Each instance is unique because we've overridden, and it's smart enough to know that the JavaScript is based on the unique value that we've given each one. So if I now come in here and change something about the base comp, so if I decide that color's not working for me and I want it to be sort of brighter or something like that, so something like that, hit OK. When I go back into my demo one, all of them are updated. So you can immediately see how powerful this is, because every time you've got something that you need to replicate, or something that is based on a kind of common template, this way you get to override the properties that you need to override, but you still get all of that power of like one place to change the settings. So super fast, handy.
And we were chatting about like some of the applications. So in case it's not obvious, like some of the things that popped to mind to me, like from a personal level, maybe you have your own personal branding and you're publishing things through After Effects or even Premiere Pro, but you want some lower thirds, or you want an intro, you want an outro, and you want to have some consistency across TikTok, Instagram, like YouTube Reels, whatever it is, you can have that. You can kind of set it up, and then no matter what you're doing, you know that it's going to have that like consistency. And then from a commercial sense, you've got, like we were talking about, like running an event, say, and you're the animator who's been asked to create titles for this event, but they've only got half the speakers. You could kind of set this up, and it could be any speaker name, and they could tell you, you know, as you're getting really close, which happens all the time, oh, this speaker's dropped out, we've got this new one, can you quickly comp this up because we need that intro to change. You could very quickly kind of jump on that, which makes happy clients and happy Ians.
Happy clients throwing wads of cash at you.
Quick emergency slush fund for that quick turnaround.
That's exactly right. So, and those are great examples. And when we wire it up to our JSON, I don't know, JSON or whatever, it's JSON. When we wire it up to that, you'll see that there's even more power available to this one.
Right.
I just want to show you really quickly. So obviously, you know, we haven't done any animation yet, but it's not difficult at all. So we could say one of the wonderful things about the latest version of After Effects is track mats. You don't have to fiddle around with effects anymore. I can just say, all right, I want that headline to be masked by that shape layer. Just drag my little pick whip down there, and now that is masked. It doesn't look like it, but it is. If I turn that layer back on, and let's see if I'll scale it. So we could say at 2 seconds, maybe that's a bit long. At 1 second, put a scale keyframe in there and change that to 0. Do something cool with the curves so that it looks like dramatic. Break that one out and make it cool and exciting. All right, now we play that back. Wow.
It is cool and exciting.
Yeah.
It's exactly how I would describe it.
And now when I go in here and offset all of these a little bit, you can go, here you go.
Okay.
So very quickly set up a kind of a template, and then got individual instances of that going. And it's all in one place. So if I went in here and sort of said, okay, that animation's not so cool, I want it to be a little bit less dramatic, make it a bit longer, change the curve of it so that it's, you know, maybe, I don't know, something like that. And then come back in here, and sure enough, we've got a completely different look. So
that's awesome.
All of those inherited from that base comp. I hope you're as excited as me, because
it's very cool.
Absolutely, I just love that. I think it's incredibly powerful and good. So that was the kind of the basics, I suppose. And now I want to show you how this JSON. I keep saying JSON. Let's look at what that.
I'm not going to correct you. I've never known that means. Like how to say it, because it looks like almost like Twitter when it came out, when it was like TWIWTR, like when internet, like tech companies were just dropping vowels left, right, and center.
Drop letters, yeah.
Yeah, and I always thought it was just a little bit like that. I didn't actually realize it like stood for anything. I thought it was some dude called Jason who was trying to put his mark on the internet.
There's probably some dude called Jason, but it was. I think the reason I never know how to say this out loud is mostly no one wants to talk to me about it. Never get the opportunity, but here we are on Adobe Live. It seems like the perfect time to talk about it. So,
it's the perfect time.
JSON, JavaScript object notation, which is, it's really just structured data. So kind of like, Microsoft Excel or anything that's, it's structured data is probably the best way to think about it. So I've got one here. This is an example that we're going to jump into in a minute, called blackferns.json. And if I turn on the next little thingy bob, this is a segment of this file. So it uses, there are different kind of programming nomenclature in JSON. We won't get into that too much now because I've got a nifty little technique so that you don't even have to think about it too much. But you've got these curly braces, that means it's an object. And then these are, there's an object key, and that's the object value. So the object key in this instance is called player, and the object value is Amy Duplessis. And then in After Effects, we can refer to the property of that object by using the word. The case is important. So if it's a capital P over here, use a capital P over here. And then that will give us the value of that object key.
Right. So, okay. So you've got like a just on JSON. JSON's over here with the this bit of source code, and then you've got to have something in After Effects to tell it to talk to it and tell it to reference.
Yeah. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And once again, I feel like it's I don't know, maybe a little bit of background to sort of like prime you up for it. But when you see it in action, that's when it really starts to like, right. That's the plan anyway. So what I want to do is just take a very quick diversion here to the New Zealand Women's National Rugby Union team, also known as the Black Ferns. They just won the Women's Rugby World Cup the other day. So very proud of them. And here is a list of the current squad. So this is what we want. We're going to use this in our After Effects file. So it's a whole bunch of structured data. It's got a table here with every column has got a heading, and then it's got a whole bunch of information about them. And just to make life a bit easier, I'm using a Chrome plugin called Table Capture, which allows me to just right click on here, go Table Capture, display actions inline, and it automatically pops up here, and I can just say copy to clipboard.
Oh wow.
And
what's that called? Table Capture.
It's called Table Capture, and it's really good. So that was an old one, but if I paste that now, it's just got every line of that table separated by a tab character.
Right.
And that's basically, we're sort of halfway there. It's a very convenient, very quick and easy way to grab structured data from the web. Then we use this tool called TSV to JSON, which TSV is tab separated values, which is what that is.
Right.
And it's going to convert that into JSON for us. So we don't even need to think about it.
So that's like a CSV when you're exporting something like from an Excel spreadsheet or something. It's like just a different form. Okay, cool.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So the Table Capture plugin, I think you can get it to, if you pay money, then you can get more ways of capturing it. But I think the free tier just captures tab separated values. So we use this TSV to JSON one, and then just paste it in this box. And now over here, it automatically has put that into JSON for us.
Oh, wow.
So completely like we saw before, where it had player, position, cap, super club, province, age for all of those players. So really easy. I'm going to go copy to clipboard, and then I'll make that. Here's one I set up earlier, but otherwise I would just make a new document in a text editor. I usually use like a Visual Studio Code or Sublime Text, and just paste that in there. This will automatically figure out that it's JSON, and that's it. You've got your JSON, you've got your data. And
wow. Okay. So you didn't type a line of code during that whole time, but if someone just came into the stream right now, they might look at that and just go, "Whoa, that's like no code. Thank you very much."
Yeah, someone might just come in here and go, "I thought this was an After Effects subject." Well, it is. But yeah, there's no. This was all very, very straightforward. You saw like basically just like go copy, paste, copy, paste.
Yeah,
easy as that.
Incredible.
So we've got all of our, and then so we've got every single player in here. The square brackets just means it's a list, and then each one of these in the curly brackets just means it's another object in the list. But like I say, we don't even need to think about that because we've already got it. I've saved that somewhere on my hard drive. I like to put them in a folder called data, so blackferns.json, and it's just a text file. So we want to bring that now into After Effects, because recent versions of After Effects, I don't remember exactly when, but they opened it up so that you can just chuck that stuff straight into After Effects, which is very handy. So I'll just drag that JSON file into my project window.
So you can add it as if it was, you're adding an image or adding, bit of footage or something like that, just to keep it so all in one place, I assume.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very straightforward. It's just like it understands that format. Like After Effects understands that format and knows what to do with it. So it's just another asset, like you say, like a movie or a image or something.
Cool.
So once it's in there, we can change our expression in. We'll just do it on one of these for now. So make that what we're trying to do now is, instead of saying tacos, I want it to say the name of one of the black ferns. So how to get the JSON into this layer. And again, it's like a little bit of code, not too much, but what I want to do is first of all, I'll get a variable, and I think by convention, I'll just call it lib for library. Lib equals, and now I can just, again, using my pick whip, go up there and grab that JSON. So it's guessed, well, not guessed, but it knows that that's a bit of footage. It's put in the name for me. And then I need to access the contents of that. And there's a special keyword for that called source data. So I put dot, start typing source. It sort of guesses what I mean, source data. And now I have the lib variable pointing toward my JSON file. And then it's just a simple matter of pulling out one of the objects from that file. So if we go back in here, we can see these are all, because it's in that square bracket, that means it's a list. So this is object, remembering that JavaScript starts numbering from 0. So This is 0, this is 1, this is 2, 3, 4. You know how numbers work, so I'll just
yeah, I got the rest from there, but it was good to learn the start.
We could do a separate Adobe Live on numbers. So if we wanted Alana, she's at the very top, we want to call that 0. So I'm going to say lib and then square bracket, because we're accessing an element of the list, 0, and now I'll put a dot, and now I want to access using one of the keys in here. In this instance, we've got player. So I'll put the dot, and then I'm going to type player. And that's it. If I press return and everything goes well,
hey,
it's automatically pulled that out for me.
That's awesome.
And so by changing that number there, I can just plug in a different one. It will change the name. And it's, as you can see, it's also like before, it's updating the rectangle behind it as well automatically.
Wow.
So pretty nifty and cool and good. But if you wanted to get even more, kind of crazy on it, you could also let's pull out, instead of always typing in a number here to pull out a different player, we can name our layer with a number and use that to access the individual member of the list. So in order to do that, set up another variable, and we'll call it my name equals this layer name. That's going to put that in a variable, and then we'll just need to make sure that, because when you're programming in JavaScript, there are different types of object. One is called a string, which is like sort of letters and numbers and words, and then there are also numbers, and you want to make sure that you're using the correct object for each, because this layer name could contain letters which aren't numbers. We will make sure that that's a number by calling it my name equals, and so we'll say pass int, which is like geeky stuff, don't worry about it. My name, all that means is it's guaranteed now to be a number. So you could make that into one statement, but we'll just leave it as 2 just for convenience sake. And now we've got, this will be the index of our layer name. So we'll replace the number with my name, and there we go. So now if we went back to before where we had this like smaller, I hope that's all nice and visible. But if I lay these out, I'll duplicate it. When I duplicate it, After Effects will increment that number by 1. And thanks to our nifty little expression, the name will automatically update.
Oh, wow. So how does it know, what have you done to tell it so that when you duplicate it, it's going to reference the next number sequentially?
It's literally just because it's drawing the my name variable is referencing the name of the layer. And by default, if your layer is a number, then After Effects will automatically increment that number by 1 when you duplicate it.
Right.
And so it's just kind of like a nice little handy thing where I say I duplicate number 4. That means that now that layer is called number 5. And looking at that expression basically means my name is 05, which means that it's pulling number 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, I messed up there, Athena, but that's where it's pulling the information. Yep. I hope that makes sense.
Yep. No, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Really cool.
And that's just the name. So if we wanted to add it so that we had the let's put in the super club as well. So we'll go back into our base comp like we had before. Going to put in a new one here. I want to just call that super club. Maybe we'll center that and we'll just put underneath. Make it like orange, why not? And similarly, see, you've still got the essential graphics panel up here open, the headline on the base comp. What I want to do is the same thing here with this super club text. So I will right click on the source text and I'm going to add the property to essential graphics. And just as a reminder, if that panel wasn't open and you needed it to be, right click down here, open in essential graphics. Then I'm going to find the source text property of our new layer, right click, add property to essential graphics. I'll give it, actually that name is fine, super club. And now when I go back into our demo of base comp, it's appearing in there. So similarly, all I need to do to make that live is to wire it up. So again, I've just gotten rid of the other layers because I don't need them right now. I'll duplicate it again. You can see it working one more time. But under essential properties, we can see that's the one that we've already wired up, headline. I'm just going to copy that expression. And now I'm going to make this into an expression, super club, by option clicking on the super club property, hit paste. I'm just going to press enter right now. And you can see it's pulling out, still pulling out the player because I haven't updated the expression yet. If we go back into here, player, we could just get away with just writing dot player. But in this instance, JavaScript in every programming language is a little bit funny about white space, like spaces and tabs and all that kind of thing. So because this has a space in it, the super club, all we need to do when we refer to it, take away player, take away the dot, put another bracket, and now I'm going to open the quote and type super club.
And you've included the space there as well.
I've included the space, yeah.
Right.
So if we really wanted to make it so that we didn't have to, that's fine, because that name is arbitrary. It can be anything. So you could actually go into here and when you go at this stage, change the way that it's set up. So I could say copy to clipboard, go into here, change instead of super club, we could take out that space. And then when I go into this, and now you can see there's no space anymore. Super club.
That's changed it in all of them. And
yeah, exactly. But because we didn't do that, I'm just gonna, and it's handy to know how to do it in case you have to. Then there's a little, it's already put it in there. So that's the super club. It's pulling from our JSON. Now it's pulling out the player name and the super club for that player. So when I duplicate it, and
wow,
so super easy.
that's awesome.
Yeah, and then once you change that number to anything you like, and it will. So that's sort of by coincidence. A lot of them seem to be in the same club, which is like not great for my demo because I wanted to actually
makes sense that there's going to be a bunch of players that are in the same super club. So
yeah, it does make sense.
I assume that's like the club level, and we're talking about the national team or something.
That's exactly right. Yep. Those are the regional clubs.
Yeah.
So there you go. It's kind of we've wired it up. We've set up a base comp, much like we did. Like all of those individual instances inherit from the base comp, so that if I go and change a property I can turn on like all caps. I could change the size of it, change the color of it, whatever it is. You know, go nuts. These colors are ghastly. I'm so sorry. Yeah, really bad colors. I'm just not.
Well, again, going back to like, I love like future proofing projects, especially like during handover to clients. Like imagine handing that over and you've got maybe the color for the year for the competition is this orange, right? And then you've sent them over, they've gone, yep, signed off. That's great. Thanks very much, Ian. Like, you know, render them all out, send them over in all these different formats. You do all that. And then someone comes back and says, you're not allowed, you don't have permission to use our color. And why don't the super clubs have the color of the super club? Get them to change that. And then that comes back to you, usually with a ASAP in caps in the email or something like that, or an urgent phone call at 7:00 at night on a Friday. And you've got to turn that around. Like how good and how happy would you feel setting up something like this in this way? Like it's such an easy guy. You just get your weekend back.
Yeah, yeah, you do. You really do. It's incredibly satisfying. Like if you've got it, put in a little bit. Maybe it's a bit more work at the beginning to set it up properly.
Yeah.
But then when changes come in, you're just like just batting away the changes. Like, it's so easy. So there you go. So just made those little changes in there, and as you can see, they're all automatically updated with from one change. It's rippled throughout all of the instances, which is incredible.
That's amazing. And I've definitely been working on projects where there's you get to the point and you sort of do get to the end and something wants to be changed, or a manager sees it, or senior stakeholder for whatever sees it, and they're like, no, this can't happen. And then suddenly you've got to scramble to try to get things to work with your agency or with your design team or something, and it's often like, it's a bit of a heavy lift, so it happens all the time, right? Like these last minute changes, really color, font. We're not actually licensed for the font to have this on a video or something. It's only internal. We didn't realize that, and suddenly the whole thing needs to be redone or something like that. So I love it.
Yeah, and you need to. You're exactly right, and you need to build in all of those kind of like what if it goes wrong kind of when you're planning the job, because things do change and things do happen, and it's kind of the first version is never the last version sort of thing, so you need to kind of take all that into account. So agreed.
Cool.
And then so once you've got all that, and then you can do your kind of animation bits and bobs on that as well. So we could just set up, for example, under the Super Club, I'm going to use a text animation. So we could animate the opacity of this text, which is a really basic one. You could, we just say, okay, opacity is 0, and we'll just put a keyframe the offset. That's it was just taking a minute to update, so we could do it like that. For example, not very exciting, but let's put it under words, and we'll just keyframe the offset so that Super Club comes up 100%. And then there you go. They should all. We need to offset them in time. That was the one thing that I hadn't done yet to make it look slightly better. don't want them all happening at the same time. So you could use something like Skew or Rift or whatever, or you could just eyeball it like I'm about to do, or move them all. So now when we play that back, there they go.
Awesome.
Yeah. And there's all of your little headings.
It's so cute. By the way, we spent a lot of time in Skew on Tuesday. So if you want to know what we're talking about there, go check that one out. That was part 1 of this series. Have a question. When was the worst instance of you having to use this technique, if that makes sense?
I think, definitely some of the jobs that I've done have required, especially in this day and age where there are so many different deliverables. There are like you've got deliverables for, especially with the social platforms, and so people want things that are 16 by 9. They want them that are square. They want them by 9 by 16. Different durations, different swapping out soundtracks. Sometimes you need different languages, and there's when I think once you set it all up and it's all working beautifully, it's very satisfying. But sometimes you have to make a call as to, is it worth setting everything up in this way? And
right.
The more kind of exceptions there are, the more difficult it then becomes. Like, consistency is your friend when you're working like this, because the more consistency there is, the more that you can plan for it, and then you know that everything's going to work beautifully. But once you start getting lots of exceptions, and sometimes when you've got loads of deliverables, there might be exceptions, and then you really do need to kind of make a decision as to, should I keep pursuing this like elegant, clever, clean way, or do I sort of get down and dirty and actually kind of start hacking things manually?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
cool.
But ultimately, I'm a huge fan. I just think it saves a lot of time, a lot of messing around.
That's cool.
I think if we've got another 5 minutes, I'll just touch on very quickly this other thing that
we've got time. We've got about 8 minutes, so we're ahead of schedule.
Fantastic. So I was just going to show you very, very super fast. This was another one that I did for the. I considered doing this as a demo, but we didn't end up going down that route. But it was kind of like, this is After Effects weather. So weather in After Effects, I wrote a little bit of Python. So if all goes to plan, if I go into my data folder and then I run my Python script. So just to prove that this is indeed live, this is saying forecast for the rest of Tuesday. I run my little Python script. It'll spit out the JSON into the file. After Effects automatically recognizes it and now it's changed it to Thursday. So for the max is 20, and that should be the current weather, which is just pulled from the Bureau of Meteorology. And as you can see, like when you go through, it's changing the background based on the maximum temperature as well. So It's just another way, and you can see the this is what the data looks like for that. So it's a similar kind of thing. It's just like summary, heading, min, max, and that's a paragraph kind of thing. So pretty simple. And then there's a little bit of logic as well around. So if I go into the shape, so the color background in here, it's basically just kind of saying, I won't go into it too much. It's like we go, it changes the background depending on the temperature. It changes like how much up or down, like the color of the background color. So you can get quite sophisticated in terms of how you wire it up. But that was not what I wanted to talk to you about. What I wanted to talk to you about was this website. So this is actually a Sydney guy, really lovely chap. I've spoken to him a couple of times. He's got a website called motiondeveloper.com. And what he did was actually spent some time. He's got some great resources on here for all of your geeky After Effects needs. But one of the things that he did was figure out how to use types, how to write After Effects expressions in TypeScript. So this is one which is like really kind of like mind-blowing stuff and extremely powerful if you have already kind of think you're pretty happy with expressions and all that kind of thing, this is definitely worth checking out. What you get is you kind of you can make I'll run one right now. So make an expression library. So I'm in the terminal now on the command line. So I could call this Adobe Live.
In your Mac, just to be clear, you've got the terminal open on
my Mac. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And it's all possible on Windows as well. I don't know how to do it on Windows, but it is definitely possible on Windows. And so this is all in the in his tutorial then, and there's a video as well. But what this lets you do, and once that's finished downloading all the dependencies, TypeScript is a language from Microsoft, and it's a superscript of JavaScript, and it lets you, like, JavaScript is kind of great for a lot of things, but TypeScript is like JavaScript and then some. Like it's a much more powerful environment. So I've just set up that little folder. It's made this Adobe Live demo in here, and if I go into my source file, here's some of the this is like the demonstration kind of thing. When you are writing your expression in TypeScript, it will spit out a file, which I can just run by saying npm run watch. Now that's automatically going to take this TypeScript and spit out a JavaScript here, Adobe Live demo.jsx. And you're thinking like, okay, cool, why don't I just write JavaScript? There's a lot more power in here. So if I said, for example, I'm going to put in here a function, we'll call it banana. That's what I would call things when I can't think of them. I could say I'll give it a type. So I'll call it a layer. Now when I type a and a dot, it automatically throws up all of the layer methods and properties. So I don't even have to think about it anymore. So you're thinking like, doesn't
layer properties in After Effects, right?
Exactly, properties in After Effects. So if you're wondering like, well, hang on, that's like already happens in here. It does, but it's not. After Effects, the code editor in After Effects is JavaScript. So it doesn't know it when you start typing a dot, it puts up every single a whole bunch of properties that you might not be interested in. Whereas in TypeScript, this will automatically kind of know what object you're referring to, and so it will be it's a more powerful and a faster way of working. And then once you've got your whole library, you can drop that into After Effects and then refer to all of those. So rather than typing everything into After Effects, you can edit it in a separate, like more powerful code editor and build a reusable library of expressions. And that's, I think, something that I've been like really having a lot of fun with, because rather than writing a whole bunch of expressions that are contained in that After Effects project, you do them in here and then import your expressions into different projects and keep using them. And so you build up a library. And actually on the motion developer site as well, there is a there's one of these tools. So yeah, AE Functions, this lovely chap has made this available. So there's a whole bunch of expressions in there that you can useful things that you can just like grab and chuck in there. You don't even have to know what they're doing behind the scenes. You can just grab it and use it. So very exciting stuff. I realize it's like pretty geeky, but if you've been watching this and thinking, I want more geeky stuff, got you covered.
There you go. Bit of homework. I'm not going to pretend that I followed everything in that last 5 minutes, but everything leading up to the 5 minutes, you definitely had me. Well, I hope everyone has found today useful. Yeah, incredibly powerful stuff. I think like the theme from Tuesday to Thursday is just how powerful a lot of the stuff under the hood within After Effects can be if you know where to look, and what huge time savers as well, which is time is money, money is power, power is pizza. So that's been my biggest takeaway. Ian, thanks for hanging out. Of course, if nothing else, it is just always great geeking out with you here on Adobe Live, and really appreciate your time.
Pleasure is all mine. Thanks for listening to me geek out. It was super fun.
And thanks everyone for watching. We'll be back next week for more Adobe Live. Thank you, and Ian, we'll see you next time.
Thanks a lot. See ya.
See you guys.